The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by our respective publisher. For more information, just visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Now, welcome to you, our Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We now present a reading of articles and features from the USA Today for Tuesday, May the 5th, which is Cinco de Mayo of 2026. And your readers today are Jody
and Alan Blackburn.
And I'm going to start you out on our front page, and my article is The U.S. Steps Up Effort to Reopen the Strait. The military says passage should be guarded by air and sea. 2 U.S. flagships have passed through the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. military said as an American initiative to free ships stranded in this crucial trade route began. Now, U.S. Central Command said 2 ships moved through the waterway May 4th as a first step in President Donald Trump's effort to reopen the strait, which Iran has effectively closed since the start of the U.S.-Israeli war in Iran in February. Now, earlier May 4th, Iranian state media reported that the country's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps had fired on 2 U.S. flagged ships. Now, Central Command denied the claims and said a naval blockade on Iranian ports and ships, it does remain in place. Now, amid the stalemate, oil was pushing higher early May the 4th, nudging gas prices well above $4 a gallon. Trump threatens use of force. The initiative, which Trump has dubbed Project Freedom, it's being supported by 15,000 military personnel and more than 100 land and sea-based aircraft, plus warships and drones, Central Command has said. Trump warned that any interference would be dealt with forcefully. The effort will not necessarily involve Navy warships escorting tankers through that strategic waterway, but it will use ships in the vicinity to prevent Iran's military from firing at commercial ships. Shipping execs are still skeptical. The Joint Maritime Information Center, led by the U.S. Maritime Forces based in Bahrain, told operators in a note that the U.S. had established an enhanced security area to support the Strait of Hormuz transits and advised vessels to use Omani waters on the west of the strait to avoid the mines, urging them to carefully review risk assessments and routing ahead of transit. Where do the negotiations stand right now? Talks between the U.S. and Iran appeared at an impasse over Tehran's nuclear program. Now, Iran said May 3rd that it was reviewing a U.S. response to its latest proposal for peace talks, but that negotiations would not immediately involve discussions about its nuclear program. The White House did not confirm whether it had responded to Iran's latest proposal. Now, on May 2nd, Trump said he had not yet reviewed the proposition, but said he would probably reject it, writing in a social media post that the Middle Eastern country has not yet paid a big enough price. Now, when asked by reporters if he's considering resuming strikes in Iran, the president said there's a possibility that could happen if they misbehave. Now, it remained unclear how the U.S. initiative to free ships stranded in the strait could affect peace talks. Pakistan said the U.S. had handed over 22 crew members from an Iranian container vessel American forces had seized in April. Pakistan, which has been trying to broker a peace agreement, described the move as a confidence-building measure.
Cuban Americans are split on the path to the future. 90 miles from Florida shores sits Cuba, an island that recently became a focus of President Donald Trump and remains a continual pressure point for Cuban Americans, some of whom said they feel increasingly severed from the country that's only a short plane ride away. As USA-Cuba tensions escalate under Trump's administration, including fresh talks of blockades, takeovers, and regime change, that distance feels larger than ever, including for Cuban American and Miami native Andrew Otazo, who grew up hearing stories of his family's time in Cuba and remains a place he does not intimately know. Those stories are laced with a melancholy sense of disconnection, complicated by the United States' continually strained relationship with the island. The emotional distance has sharpened in recent months, as power outages, worsening conditions on the ground, and talks between the two governments reportedly continue. Cuban Americans say the moment feels like a turning point, one that has left many torn between cautious hope, fear, and deep skepticism. Tension between the United States and Cuba has hit a peak in recent weeks following Trump's oil blockade in early 2026, which led to mass blackouts and increased strain on the country's already ailing infrastructure. U.S. and Cuban leadership have repeatedly held multiple conversations in the wake of the blockade and floated multiple options of what to do with the island, from pursuing an economic deal to regime change to a U.S. military operation. What to do with the island is a pressure point for many in the Cuban community. While some supporting isolating the island to force a regime shift, others wish for a U.S.-Cuba relationship to better conditions in the country. Right now it seems like change is going to come, but what is happening now is different. The moment is different from any other moment. Since the Cuban Revolution and the U.S. relationship with Cuba, you have a sense in the community here that everyone's wildly optimistic and wildly fearful at the same time. The feeling of uncertainty is echoed by Austin Ibarra, who told USA Today it feels like some sort of inflective tipping point, not sure in what direction. While I'd like to see the end of U.S. sanctions, the removal of Cuba from the state sponsors of a terrorism list, and the ability for the island to conduct relationships and business with other places, he acknowledges that those agreements would likely come with concessions that wouldn't satisfy all Cubans. He does see a universe where anti-regime Cubans are willing to deal with the Communist Party in power at all. I think the level to which they're dug in the trenches and dead set on change for government will only lead to a further lack of reconciliation. And I think that's fine, he said. I don't think there's reconciliation between the people who would want to see such suffering for the specific aims because there are different interests. Beyond that, U.S. interaction does not necessarily ensure a better life for Cuban people. Cuba cannot be free of conditions if its freedom are imposed on it by the strength of the U.S. Right now, even if the siege is broken like that, breaking the siege does not necessarily mean genuine freedom for the people of Cuba, genuine self-determination. Nikki Gonzalez, a 31-year-old Cuban-American in Washington, D.C., is more hopeful. We don't want it to be want it to be like what's happening in Venezuela right now or like what's happened in the Middle East, where we go in and take down the government, then we just leave everything to their own devices. A lot of negativity happens when you leave the space open and anyone can take control. Communism is bad, and we know that Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel and all of that is bad, but who knows if there's something worse.
TikTok's liberal bros make waves politically. Jared Schultz, he flailed both arms during the first weekend of Coachella, like a kind of inflatable figure that sits outside a used car lot. Imagine hating on me when this is the vibe I'm on, he captioned in an Instagram video post of his moves at the California Music Festival April 13th. Trump has more rhythm than you, bro, one user commented. Damn, that's a low blow, Schultz replied, who's 22. Now, as he buoyed his reputation with over 500,000 followers across Instagram, TikTok, and X, a fellow influencer jabbed at the Trump administration. One day earlier, the 23-year-old Harry Sisson, who now boasts 3.9 million followers between Instagram, TikTok, and X, he posted that J.D. Vance is on a generational losing streak. Keep it up, J.D., he said. Schultz and Sisson are two of the left's best-known young straight white men, and they're using a similar playbook to California's Governor Gavin Newsom, punching back at MAGA movement members with Trump's stinging style. Sisson says, Trump promised young men things that are not coming true. Now, based in New York and Texas, Schultz and Sisson, they are helping the Democratic Party build support among Gen Z voters, laying the foundation one sassy post at a time. Seton Hall professor Jess Rauschberg, who studies digital culture, said the larger attitudes about young white men, such as Schultz and Sisson, have shifted as Trump's second term enters its second year. Now the Democratic Party is relying on figures like Newsom and Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear to help get messages across and relate to white men. During the 24 race, VP Kamala Harris struggled to captivate support among young white men. And then meanwhile, Trump used male-centric podcasts during his candidacy to bolster his message about affordability and the economy among young men. Trump promised them these things, he said, and we're going to do this. We're going to make your dreams come true, Sisson told the USA Today. But, he said, none of that is coming true. The narratives align the Democrats' goals with those of young white men. Public support for the president has waned among young voters, according to recent surveys. Yale University's Spring Youth Poll, released in April, found that Trump has lost the most ground among women under 35 and men under 30. Young voters in the poll, except for men 18 to 22, shifted towards supporting Democrats. In a February social media post, Schultz shared a selfie on Instagram in which he dons camo, followed by photos with the Texas Senate candidate James Tallarico and a picture hoisting a Liberty and Justice for All sign above his head, and snaps with California Senator Adam Schiff and potential 2028 presidential contender Pete Buttigieg. Schultz said he wants to curb the loneliness epidemic among young men and address their growing disillusionment by displaying masculine empathy. Rage-baiting Republicans. A Texas A&M alum, now Schultz is a self-described lover of the gym, the outdoor, the side quests, as seen in his bio. His flow haircut mimics the style of some members of the U.S. hockey team, who Schultz said looked bored when they attended Trump's State of the Union address on February 26. He grew up with happily married parents in an affluent Frisco, Texas, and started posting content as a high school sophomore. Then he joined a Christian youth group that influenced his online content. He found faith in progressive politics. During the pandemic in 2020, he became involved with a group of other Christian creators in the Praise House. Now, the Internet Collective was a religious version of the short-lived Hype House, a secular consortium that turbocharged the careers of pop stars like Addison Rae and ordinary hitmaker Alan Warren. Things have just changed dramatically. Sisson, who knows Schultz from online circles, found his way to viral lefty fame after forays into the digital world as a teen. In March of 2020, a 17-year-old Sisson delivered a virtual TED talk addressed to Trump. In the video, he argues that Gen Z will consider climate policies when they vote. It foreshadowed his eventual online acclaim for a flurry of content that he posted in support of former President Joe Biden during the 2020 race. You could go on social media and, see what your friends are doing, but also see a video of a dog or whatever, or cats, he told USA Today. Now, especially since Musk took over Twitter and then Trump regime has come back in, things have just dramatically changed, he said. Young men are in a hurry. On February the 24th, Sisson moderated the New York City tour stop for Newsom, who was promoting his new memoir called Young Man in a Hurry. That's a title that nods to the book's journey from Newsom's boyhood struggle with dyslexia to his West Coast political rise. Now, 2 months later, Schultz basked in the April desert sun and danced to Justin Bieber's pared-back Coachella set as the pop star sat on a stool in front of the laptop perched on a table. He later slammed Fox News as out of touch after the cable news network framed Bieber's performance as controversial because of its stripped-down setting. Now, Sisson told USA Today he's a basic dude who wants the life that I envisioned when I was young. He wants to be successful with a family of his own. Own a house, like someplace somewhere. He likes going to the gym. I want a robust debate again, he said. I want to have a space in politics where we can make a change.
Well, you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:13. A New York City bill would ban New York Police Department's use of armed robots. Utilization of policing tools draws criticism. A New York City lawmaker is pushing to draw a clear line on how far policing technology can go. City Council member Jennifer Gutierrez on April 30th introduced legislation dubbed the Asimov Act. Asimov was a science fiction writer years ago, a proposal that would ban the New York Police Department from deploying armed robots while assisting officers. At today's stated meeting, I'm proud to have introduced my new bill, the Asimov Act, that bans the New York Police Department from using robots against our communities, Gutierrez said in a Facebook post announcing the measure. With new forms of technology emerging every day, it's increasingly important that we safeguard public safety and establish clear boundaries on their use by law enforcement. USA Today has reached out to New York Police Department and Gutierrez's office for additional comment. The rise of police robots sparks debate. The proposal comes as law enforcement agencies across the United States increasingly experiment with robotic technology. In 2014, leaders at Knightscope told USA Today they envisioned fleets of autonomous machines patrolling public spaces. Nearly a decade later, one of the company's 400-pound K5 robots was deployed in New York City's transit system, operating alongside human officers. Experts say such devices may become more common. Matthew Wargalia, a policy analyst at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, previously warned that robots could become the next big trend in policing, similar to facial recognition or gunshot detection systems. Police departments have long used robots for bomb disposal and surveillance, but newer models can autonomously patrol, collect data, and relay information in real time. Concerns over surveillance and effectiveness. The spread of robotic policing tools has drawn criticism from civil liberties advocates and some researchers who question both their necessity and impact. Albert Fox Kahn, executive director of the Surveillance Technology Oversight Project, has argued that such technology is expensive and creepy, with unclear benefits to public safety. Others point to a lack of data showing whether robots meaningfully can reduce crime. Andrew Ferguson, a law professor at American University, describes some deployments as security theater, suggesting highly visible tools may do little to address underlying causes of crime. Privacy concerns also loom large. Critics warn that mobile robotic systems could normalize increased surveillance, particularly in cities like New York, where monitoring is already widespread. Fears of weaponization. The central issue driving Duterre's proposal is the possibility that robots could be equipped with weapons. Advocates have raised alarms since a 2016 incident in Dallas where police used a bomb disposal robot to kill a gunman, believed to be the first use of a robot for lethal force by U.S. Police Department. More recently, a proposal in San Francisco to allow robots capable of deadly force prompted national backlash before being reversed. Groups such as the American Civil Liberties Union have warned that weaponized robots could expand the use of force in policing, while campaigns like Stop Killer Robots push for broader restrictions. Even within the robotics industry, some companies, including Boston Dynamics, have opposed weaponizing general-purpose machines. There's a push for guardrails. Supporters of tighter regulations say legislation like the Asimov Act, again, Isaac Asimov was a science fiction writer who set up a bunch of rules for robots. Like the Asimov Act reflects growing urgency to establish boundaries before the technology advances further. Ryan Kahlo, who studies law and emerging technology, has emphasized that communities should play a role in deciding how such tools are used. Guterres echoed that sentiment in her announcement, framing the bill as a proactive step to ensure public safety keeps pace with innovation. I'm looking forward to working with my colleagues to pass this important legislation, she said.
Tensions in Cuba are on the agenda as Rubio meets with Pope Leo XIV. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is expected to travel to Italy and the Vatican this week for a meeting with Pope Leo XIV, where Cuba is on the agenda. The U.S. began ramping up pressure on the communist-run island in January, leveraging an oil embargo and curtailing aid to force the Cuban government to cut a deal or face military action. Now, the visit would be the first meeting between our Chicago-born pontiff and a senior member of the administration since President Donald Trump sharply criticized the Pope last month. An official Vatican calendar notice said that the meeting was due May 7th. Now, a spokesperson for the State Department confirmed Rubio's trip and said the visit to Rome would run from May 6th to 8th. The purpose is to advance bilateral relations with Italy and the Vatican. Pijot said that Rubio would meet with the Holy See leadership to discuss the situation in the Middle East and mutual interests in the Western Hemisphere. Meetings with the Secretary's Italian counterparts are expected to focus on shared security interests. The State Department declined to provide further details on Rubio's agenda in response to an inquiry from USA Today. Now, in March, USA Today reported that the U.S. and Cuba were exploring an economic deal. Then last month, USA Today reported on a U.S. push for Cuba to release high-profile political prisoners as a gesture of goodwill. Trump has been at odds with the Pope's position on the war in Iran. The Vatican has also traditionally acted as a mediator with Cuba, a country that Trump has mused about taking over. Leo has expressed concerns about rising tensions between Trump administration and Cuba. The White House is intent on pushing for economic and political reforms in Cuba, and it has instituted a de facto oil blockade of that island that brought it to the brink of humanitarian disaster. In April, the Cuban government announced that it granted pardons to 2,010 detainees, none of whom were considered political prisoners by a leading human rights group, ahead of Easter in what appeared to be a gesture aimed at our White House. Then last month, Trump criticized Leo, calling him soft on crime and awful on foreign affairs. The remarks sparked disagreement among conservative Catholics and triggered a wave of backlash. Trump also implied that Pope Leo, the first pope born in the U.S., was chosen by the conclave last year, partly in response to his own leadership.
Forecasters say don't be fooled by May's weather. Much of the month will be cooler for most of the U.S. It's the calm before the storm, for the temperature, that is. After an early spring marked by ups and downs in temperature trends, forecasters say much of May will be cooler than normal for most of the country, ahead of what could be a summer of coast-to-coast heat. The cool down will be most pronounced in the Midwest, said Climate Prediction Center meteorologist Brad Pugh. In that region, there could even be some overnight lows that dip into frost or freezing territory. For most of the eastern half of the United States, at least the first part of the month, will feel more like early spring. During the time, there will be some sunny days, but more times than not, we're going to have a lot of clouds during the day. The notable exception to the cooling trend is the West Coast, especially the Pacific Northwest, which is getting an early start to above average temperatures. The transition to summer-like temperatures there will be much quicker than the rest of the nation, and during the course of May, the warmth will spread from west to east as summer approaches. In the east, it'll feel more like late March, early April than early May. And we'll still need our jackets, and we still need our sweaters, but in the Northwest, it's time to get the summer outfit out. Cool May will shift to coast with a hot summer. The cold pattern in the eastern part of the country is thanks to a dip in the jet stream lingering over the United States, while atmospheric blocking prevents it from heading northward to Canada. Once we get into about the third week of May, the blocking won't be as strong and the cool air will shift away. Several major cities, including places like Detroit, Pittsburgh, and New York City, could see temperatures an average of 2 to 4 degrees below normal for May. That may not sound like much, but when taken over a 3-day period, it's a significant departure from a typical May. On a day-to-day basis, temperatures could be as much as 15 degrees below average in eastern cities. In New York City, for example, a normal May would see temperatures in the upper 60s early in the month to mid-70s later in the month. But this year's temperatures will likely stay in the 60s or even upper 50s, with the lows dropping down into the 40s. Chicago's usual highs in May range similarly from 60s to mid-70s, but this year, the first part of May, we'll see days 10 to 15 degrees below an average and the highs in the 50s. By the middle of the month, the warm-up moving west to east will have reached Chicago, and temperatures will be more average and even above average by late May. In the east, that transition to summer with higher temperatures will be much more gradual through June than it will be in the west. That may be bad news for those who want to get into the pool early in the morning in June, but great for those wanting to relax by a bonfire in the evenings. The Climate Prediction Center outlook from May to July on a whole shows a chances that lean toward above normal, with areas in the northwest and some in the south and mid-Atlantic with higher chances. Our May, June, July outlook calls for an increased chance of above normal temperatures for the majority of the country. AccuWeather predicts a summer of weather extremes, from heat waves in the west and south, repeated thunderstorms risking flash flooding from Texas to the Ohio Valley, and worsening drought in the Northwest and Great Basin. The nation could be divided by weather extremes this summer. We'll see dramatically different conditions happening at the same time, with flash flooding in one region while others deal with extreme heat, drought, and wildfires. May could bring frost and freeze to some areas. In the Midwest, particularly around the Great Lakes and upper Mississippi Valley, Temperatures will likely be 5 to 10 degrees below average in the first part of May. On May 1st, early morning lows got to freezing point in states like Wisconsin, he said. Frost or freeze could return to the area around May 7th or 8th. Other areas that could see chilly enough overnight lows include the Mid-Atlantic and New England. In the west, temperatures have already begun to warm. East of the Cascade cities like Spokane, there may be a couple of days straight of temperatures 10 to 15 degrees above average. And the warming will spread down to Nevada, Utah, Arizona, and California. Spokane's high temperature on May 3rd is forecast to be 80 degrees and 79 on May 4th. In the Great Basin region up through Boise, Idaho, highs in the 70s into the 80s and even a couple of days in the 90s are possible by the end of May. After not having much of a snowpack in the Central Rockies, the fast-drying and heating process as season ramps up is very dangerous for the fire season. You'll feel more like late June than early May at times, adding that many heat records could be broken in the Northwest as the summer gets underway.
The WHO says 3 are dead and a hantavirus is suspected, the cruise ship affected by this rodent-borne virus. 3 people who were aboard a cruise ship in the Atlantic Ocean have died of suspected infections of hantavirus. That's a rodent-borne virus that can cause fatal respiratory illness, the World Health Organization, WHO, said. Now, to date, 1 case of hantavirus infection has been lab confirmed, and there are 5 additional suspected cases, they said. Of the 6 affected individuals, 3 have died, and 1 is currently in intensive care in South Africa. In a statement provided to USA Today, Netherlands-based expedition cruise operator Ocean Wide Expeditions said it was addressing a serious medical situation on the MV Hondias. That ship was en route from Argentina to Cape Verde, an island nation off Africa's west coast. Then on April 11th, a Dutch guest died aboard the ship and was later disembarked in St. Helena, an island in the South Atlantic Ocean. The cause of death, though, could not be determined on board. Then his wife, who accompanied this repatriation, became unwell during the return trip, and then she also later died. Both of them were Dutch nationals. At the time, it has not been confirmed that these 2 deaths are connected to our current medical situation on board. Now, a hantavirus variant was identified, however, in a British passenger who became seriously ill and then was medically evacuated to South Africa. The passenger is stable but remains in critical condition. On May 2nd, a German passenger died aboard the vessel, though the cause has not yet been determined. 2 crew members of British and Dutch nationality were also experiencing acute respiratory symptoms, 1 mild and 1 severe. The cruise company was working with international and local authorities. 149 people are still aboard, including U.S. nationals. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention describes hantavirus as a family of viruses that can cause serious illness and death. Now, the agency said hantavirus is primarily spread by rodents through exposure to their urine, their droppings, or their saliva, or it could be less commonly through a scratch or a bite. Now, while it is rare, hantavirus may spread between people and can lead to severe respiratory illness and requires careful monitoring. The CDC says hantaviruses can cause 2 syndromes: hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, which affects your lungs, or hemorrhagic fever, and renal syndrome, which strikes your kidneys. HPS symptoms, they can include fatigue, fever, muscle aches, headaches, dizziness, chills, abdominal problems, and then followed by coughing, shortness of breath, and possible tightness in the chest, as the lungs could fill with fluid, they said. HFRS symptoms can include headaches, back and abdominal pain, fever, chills, nausea, blurred vision, a flushed face, eye redness and inflammation, and a rash, followed by low blood pressure, acute shock from reduced blood flow, internal bleeding, and then acute kidney failure.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:28, and it's on to the money section. Risky bets. Generation Z millennials flock to high-risk alternative investments. Younger Americans are flocking to high-risk alternative investments in 2026, driven by the conviction that crypto, meme stocks, and prediction markets offer better odds for meeting their financial goals. Generation Zers and millennials are gripped by a pervasive sense of financial nihilism. That pushes them into risky investments, according to Northwestern Mutual's Planning and Progress Study 2026. 3/4 of millennials and 80% of Generation Zers who choose risky investments feel financially behind, the study says. They believe speculative investments will help reach financial goals more effectively than traditional methods such as conventional stocks and bonds. But some high-risk investments are more akin to gambling, investing experts say, and the losses can go beyond money. In one high-profile case, a U.S. Army Special Forces soldier who participated in a raid to capture former Venezuelan President Maduro faces charges in connection with placing bets on the top-secret operation on the prediction platform Polymarket. Crypto is arguably the most popular alternative investment among U.S. adults. 24% are invested in crypto or considering it, according to a study that figure rises to 32% for Generation Z and 35% for millennials. But crypto is just one of the riskier investments drawing increased attention. Smaller but significant shares of young adults are drawn to three other categories of high-risk investments: sports betting and prediction markets, options trading, and so-called meme stocks. And here's the breakdown. 32% of Generation Z and 24% of millennials are invested in or considering sports betting or prediction markets. 18% of millennials and 17% of Generation Z are invested in or considering option trades. 14% of Generation Z and 13% of millennials are invested in meme stocks or considering it. All of these categories are dominated by younger investors. By contrast, fewer than 10% of baby boomers are dabbling in any of the four high-risk investments. The study draws on a survey of 4,375 Americans in January. The problem with some alternative investments, experts say, is that they aren't really investments. I define investment as something with an expected positive return, said David Gardner, co-founder of the Motley Fool. The expected return for any sports bettor is negative. There's no way around that. Investors in crypto, meme stocks, and prediction markets tend to be male, according to research and anecdotal evidence. They may get lured in by YouTube or TikTok videos from other young men bragging about their winnings, often with an appeal to masculine virtues of bravery or daring do. There's a lot of presence on social media of people who are showing a successful lifestyle, and that gives a fear of missing out. I hear the term cheat code a lot when people talk to me, Proctor said. I think a lot of people think of these alternative assets as a cheat code. Alternative investments are on the rise. The personal finance industry has been abuzz with the talk of alternative assets and diversification, inspired in part by spreading belief that stocks and bonds alone might not suffice to deliver big returns for a retail investor in the 2020s. Younger investors seem to be particularly receptive in investment alternatives, a finding echoed in previous studies. Crypto. By now, most Americans are at least passing familiar with cryptocurrencies. They are digital currencies, unlike the cash in your wallet. They aren't generally backed by a government bank or not by any real asset. Bitcoin, the best-known cryptocurrency, made its debut in 2009. Crypto investors used to buy and sell on crypto exchanges. In 2024, federal regulators cleared the way for ordinary investors to buy and sell Bitcoin ETFs, opening it up to the broader investing public. Bitcoin's value plunged in late 2025 and early 2026, but the currency has posted spectacular gains over its brief existence. Even with crypto prices basically cut in half from their highs, it's still a meaningful asset and will be a part of our financial infrastructure for the foreseeable future. Sports betting and prediction markets. Americans bet nearly $450 billion on sports in the year since the 2018 sports Supreme Court decision that effectively legalized it. Prediction markets enable investors to wager on the outcome of almost anything. To be able to predict, will the Fed raise interest rates or not this month? Or will oil prices move above $100 a barrel or below $100 a barrel by the end of the month? Who's going to win on Survivor? You can put money on that. The sports betting and prediction markers blur the line between investing and gambling. You're betting on an outcome in the hopes of creating a quick profit.
Americans are moving less. So why is Gen Z the outlier? Americans are moving less thanks to a stagnant labor market and a near frozen housing market. But the 20-somethings, they are bucking that trend, a new report shows, and those younger people are moving for reasons both new and familiar. Americans born after 1996, they're called Gen Z, are moving more than in 2023, making them the most resilient cohort when it comes to relocating. Now, some of the most popular destinations for Gen Z movers are now Denver, Minneapolis, Austin, and Philadelphia. So this suggests factors beside the labor market, like culture and environment. It may attract some young people to certain cities, they said. Then New York City, San Francisco, Seattle, and San Jose, they all attracted increasing numbers of Gen Z movers, even as more Gen Xers and boomers have moved out than moved in. Now, just like previous generations, Gen Z members are probably attracted to the dynamism and opportunity in such places enough to offset their higher cost of living. Older Americans, in contrast, they may be looking for less expensive metros as they now age and retire. Among the areas where older generations were more likely to relocate, there were several, including Austin, San Antonio, and Raleigh, North Carolina. They boast warmer climates. Gen Xers and boomers, they have been leaving expensive areas that also happen to have colder climates like New York, Seattle, Chicago, and Portland, Oregon. Americans, broadly speaking, are settling in place, concluded a release that accompanied that report.
Birch talks ambition and foundation. The fashion designer's success inspires others. In December 2019, Cassie Abel was having a moment. She was trying to run two small businesses and went into labor when her only employee, a part-timer, emailed saying she was taking a full-time job elsewhere. Then COVID-19 hit. Her mother was hospitalized in the first wave, and her father had a heart attack and was flown to a nearby hospital. Her parents slowly recovered, and Abel's businesses didn't rebound quite as quickly. The clients at her PR marketing and consulting firm were paralyzed, not sure when the world would open up. Her women's outdoor apparel company, Wild Rye, also was facing uncertainty. We had retailers emailing us threatening that they were going to cancel major purchase orders because they didn't know what the future held, she says. But as people started escaping their homes and getting outside, they needed gear, and Wild Rye started to grow. Abel shuttered the consulting business and went all in. Now the Idaho-based CEO has 11 full-time employees and posted more than $4 million in sales last year, despite the impact of tariffs. Hard work, vision, and grit got her there, and a little help from someone else. Negativity is noise. In 2017, Tony Birch was in a sleek black and white ad campaign that includes celebrities like Reese Witherspoon, Jamie Lee Curtis, John Hamm, and Gwyneth Paltrow. They were modeling her Juggernaut fashion line, known for its preppy boho style, double T logo, ballet flats, and tunics. The campaign was titled Embrace Ambition. It was a make good of sorts. In an interview about her success, Birch was asked, in a very rude way, she now says, if she described herself as ambitious. Birch demurred. When the article came out, a friend gave some quick feedback. Great article, but you really can't shy away from that word. The minute she said that, something switched to me. Of course, we collectively need to own our ambition, Birch says on a video call from her sunny office before an airport run for a flight to Paris. Hillary Clinton had just lost the presidential election. There were questions about how ambitious women should or could be. But Birch picked up the phone, and when she called to ask people to join the campaign, it was an overwhelming yes, she says. Every person I called pretty much felt that this was kind of an unlock for them at the time. When it came out, there were many naysayers. I've gotten so much flack. I mean, at every point in this company, she says, my parents have this expression that served me well. Negativity is noise. Birch heard something else, too. I can't even tell you how many people have said that campaign has really helped them think differently about their own life, their own journey, their own feelings about whatever they were doing or wanted to do. Abel remembers it. I love that motto. I grew up as an athlete. I was kind of a mega nerd at the same time. It felt like I got poked fun at because I was try hard and ambitious, so that statement really resonated. It's part of what inspired to apply for the Tory Birch Foundation Fellows Program, which at the time provided $5,000 in grant funding, networking, and other support to female founders. In the midst of the pandemic, her family's health crisis, and the business challenges she was facing, Abel had what she thought was another interview for the program. Then Birch came on screen and told the group they had been selected as fellows. It was this moment of, all right, things are starting to turn around, Abel says. Like, this is exactly what I need and when I need it. Carry on and get it done. Birch started her fashion line in 2004, and in the 2 decades since, the industry has changed dramatically. Social media, fast fashion, e-commerce, supply chain disruptions, the onslaught of AI, and other factors made it more challenging. Even as cultural phenomena like the Devil Wears Prada and its hotly anticipated sequel made fashion more accessible and mainstream. But fashion for Birch was always a bit of a Trojan horse. My business plan was to build a global lifestyle brand so that I could start a foundation, Birch says. I have no idea why I had such conviction around that idea, but I just instinctually did. She said so in a pitch after pitch. One investor shut her down quickly. He basically looked at me and said, "Never say that again." He didn't put it in his charity work, but he didn't have to, she said. Business and purpose, she made clear, did not go hand in hand. At the time, they didn't. At that time, this was before Tom's or Warby Parker promised to donate a pair of shoes or glasses for every per purchase, before Dove's self-esteem firm. Birch held firm. She launched her fashion line, and 5 years later, before that, I didn't have the money, quite honestly, the Tory Burch Foundation. In its early years, the foundation offered mentoring, coaching, and low-interest small business loans. In 2015, it launched its fellowship program, quietly working with a small cohort of 10 entrepreneurs. Now Birch is starting to see the scale of what she first envisioned. Yes, she has remained one of the few women at the top of the cutthroat industry that typically exalts men. She has been named to Forbes' most powerful women list 6 times. The company she founded has an estimated value of $3.2 billion. But she constantly wants to focus on other founders. This year, the foundation will have 120 fellows. They have announced a goal to add $1 billion to the economy through female entrepreneurs by 2030. And the total so far is $342 million. Ambitious, without hesitation. In a world that less than 2% of the VC funding goes to women-led businesses, the number that is declining, even though women-led companies on average deliver higher rates of return. We haven't made enough progress, Birch says. Well, we need to, what's the phrase? Carry on and get it done. Pilar Guzman is founder and CEO of Half Moon Empanadas in Miami. Empanadas are all they make. It's one product, one brand in airports, she says. She later adds, almost as an example of her training as a fellow in 2021, we're also building something bigger, working to make the empanada an iconic part of the American food scene while opening doors and helping our team and our communities. Fellows often talk about the community they find through the foundation, other women who understand what it is like to juggle a family and a startup. Women know how hard it is to raise money. Women who can see how selling and grab and go food that requires only one hand to customers rushing through an airport will make a successful business. Guzman had receipts. She built the business to $3 million in revenue, but growth stalled. Very successful people would tell me, it's crazy to expand at airports. You're crazy, she says. This year she's opening 4 new locations, including at Boston Logan and JFK, has 200 employees, who she pays nearly $10 more on average than the dust industry average, and is on track to hit $30 million in revenue this year. Most women's empowerment positioning across the industry, especially in fashion, is a marketing smokescreen with an empowerment label, says Megan Mason, a branding strategist, founder of L Collective. Real economic impact requires comprehensive, intentional architecture. The Tory Burch Foundation, she says, has certainly built that architecture. The fellowship is focused on early-stage businesses with minimum annual revenues of $75,000. The 12-month intensive includes a financials boot camp, pitch deck design, guidance on developing a target list of investors, and help landing those meetings to help drive sustainable growth. To date, they have 500 fellows with the average annual revenue of more than $2 million. That's nearly 30% higher than the average woman-owned business, based on data from LendingTree. Tory is playing to her strength. As an entrepreneur, she knows what it takes, says Jason Kelly, author of the new cartoon Tycoons and co-host of The Deal. There's also a very powerful flywheel effect because she's building this incredible network to have invested interest in each other's successes that has a compounding effect. Having been given this opportunity, they'll pay it forward to another generation of entrepreneurs. 2 years ago, a woman needed a $25,000 loan after lending $1 million to deal with the Department of Veteran Affairs. She got an interest-free loan from the foundation that helped her fulfill it and led to another $5 million contract. According to the foundation, entrepreneurs who participate in their program and grow faster and surpassing $1 million average revenue 10 times the national average.
And you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on our Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Our time is 12:45. Next up, we have USA Today's Human Resource column, which is written, of course, by our expert, Johnny C. Taylor. How soon is too soon to switch roles at work? The question is, I recently started a new job, but a different role at the same company just opened up that aligns more closely with my skills and long-term goals. So I don't want to appear disloyal or impulsive so early on, but this other job, it's much more appealing to me. So when is it acceptable to apply for a different internal position? And how should I handle this professionally? And this comes from Megan. Here's Johnny's answer to Megan. It's acceptable to explore another internal role, but timing, transparency, and professionalism, that matters. First, check your company's policy. Many organizations have time in the role guidelines, like 6 months to a year. Those expectations exist for good reason. Employers invest significant time and resources in onboarding and training new hires, and they want employees to have a fair opportunity to contribute to the roles they were hired. Once you understand the rules, the next step is to talk to your manager before making other inquiries. A direct, respectful conversation shows maturity and professionalism. Frame the discussion around long-term growth and alignment with your strengths, not dissatisfaction with your current job. I've had employees come to me early on and say, Johnny, I think there may be another role here that I could contribute more. Now, when those conversations were honest and professional, I often help make that move happen. Now, as a leader, I want my people positioned where they can do their best work. When employees are in roles where they can contribute most effectively, the entire organization benefits. But the employees who earned that support were the ones who showed commitment first. They delivered results and then built trust before they asked for a change. So once you've gotten the green light from your current manager, connecting with the hiring manager for the other role, that can also help you better understand the timing, expectations, and whether gaining more experience in your current position might strengthen your candidacy. Now, at the same time, balance ambition with perspective. If you pursue another role too quickly, especially just weeks after starting, it can raise reasonable concerns about your commitment. Your manager likely invested significant time helping you ramp up. Demonstrating engagement and performance where you are now, that helps build credibility for your future opportunities. Careers, they are marathons, not sprints. So focus on learning, building relationships, and delivering value in your current role. When you've built that foundation, pursuing another opportunity inside the same organization, that won't look disloyal. It will look like growth.
The travel-size nasal spray is recalled over labeling. A widely used over-the-counter nasal spray is being recalled over labeling concerns. Bayer is recalling 786,100 travel-sized bottles of Afrin Original Nasal Spray after federal regulators flagged the packaging as a possible danger to children. The Consumer Product Safety Commission announced the recall on Thursday, April 30th, citing concerns that the 6 milliliter bottles are not properly child-resistant. Bayer said the recall is voluntary and related to a labeling problem, not the product's safety or quality. The company said the nasal spray is safe when used as directed in children ages 6 and older. And what products are included in the nasal spray? The recall applies to unexpired travel-size Afrin Original Nasal Spray bottles in the 6 milliliter, which is a 1/5 of fluid ounce size. The bottles include the lot numbers 230-361, 240-822, 241-198, 250-066, 250-152, 250-646 and 250-831. The bottles are labeled Afrin Original Nasal Spray on the front, along with the size marking. The lot number is printed as a 6-digit code followed by an expiration date in the YYY-MMM format. No other Afrin products or sizes are included in the recall. And why is this nasal spray being recalled? Were any injuries reported? According to Bayer, the recall involves a labeling failure in which the packaging does not include the statement, "Package not child resistant," under federal requirements for this type of product. The affected bottles do not meet those standards and lack required warning labels for non-compliant packaging. The bottles include a keep out of reach of children warning, but do not contain the package is not child resistant required federal labeling statement. No incidents or injuries have been reported in connection with the recall, the Product Safety Commission said. And where was the recalled nasal spray sold? The recalled sprays were sold nationwide at convenience stores and travel hubs, including airports, from September 2024 through April of 2026, and they retailed for $7 to $9. Bayer said it distributes the product in bulk to U.S. distributors, which then supply retailers, and the company does not have visibility into which retailers or states ultimately receive the product. Bayer also said it stopped distributing the product in February 2026. And what should consumers do if they bought the recalled nasal spray? Consumers are urged to immediately secure the product out of sight and out of reach of children. To receive a refund, customers should visit Bayer's recall web form online, submit a photo of the product, dispose of the bottle after submission. For assistance, consumers can contact Bayer at 800-317-2165. That's 800-317-2165. Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. More information is also available through the recall package page linked on Afrin's official website.
Trump IRA, it offers up to $1,000 in retirement savings. Accounts are akin to the thrift savings plan. President Donald Trump signed an executive order April 30th that will broaden access to retirement savings for workers whose employers do not offer 401k type plans. Now, that order creates a new website, trumpira.gov, that workers can use to enroll in a private sector retirement plan. It calls for the site to be active by January 1st of 27. Beginning at the start of next year, every American will be able to go to trumpira.gov and open a new low-cost IRA account, Trump said in an afternoon signing ceremony at the White House. You'll then be able to access the same type of retirement accounts that federal employees enjoy, he said. White House officials say the accounts are akin to the thrift savings plan that is already offered to federal employees. Trump's order coincides with the coming launch of Savers Match. Now, that's a 2022 initiative of the Biden administration that delivers up to $1,000 a year in matching retirement contributions for lower-income workers. The Trump IRA plan is tailored to boost the share of American workers who are saving for retirement. Millions of people lack workplace retirement savings. Roughly 2/5 of full-time workers and 4/5 of part-time workers, they lack access to retirement savings through their employers, according to a group. Over the past half century, the federal government has been trying to persuade Americans to build savings to cover their retirement and to supplement Social Security by using tax breaks as a lure. The effort has only been partly successful. About half of all private sector employees overall now do participate in 401k plans. Trump telegraphed his plans to boost retirement savings in his 26th State of the Union address. We have millions and millions of people because the stock market has done so well, setting all these records. Your 401ks are way up, he said. Yet half of all working Americans still do not have access to a retirement plan with matching contributions from their employer. So to remedy this gross disparity, I'm announcing that next year my administration will give these often forgotten American workers, great people, the people that built our country, access to the same type of retirement plan that's offered to every federal worker. Now, at the White House signing ceremony, Trump noted in his reference to the new plan in that address, "It only seemed fair," Trump said. "Promises made, as I say, promises kept." Trump said he will be asking Congress to expand the retirement accounts to cover people with incomes above $35,500 a year, the cap on his executive order. Access to tax-favored retirement plans is widening as more states introduce automated savings programs, prodding companies to offer retirement plans and enrolling employees automatically. Starting in 2025, most new 401k plans had to automatically enroll employees rather than leaving the decision up to them. So how will the Trump IRA plan work? Under the Savers Match, starting in January of 27, nearly 22 million lower-income employees who contribute to a retirement savings account become eligible for matching funds from the government. Now, the maximum match is $1,000 per person. To qualify for Savers Match, a single tax filer must earn less than $35,500. The cap for joint filers is $71,000. The maximum match rate is 50% of the employee's contribution. The Savers Match replaces the current Savers Credit. Now, that was a non-refundable tax credit for lower-income taxpayers. The big difference is the Savers Credit only reduces the tax you owe. The Savers Match, it puts dollars into your retirement account. Now, under Trump's order, workers can use TrumpIRA.gov to filter and select IRAs based on their cost and quality, drawing from a list of private plan administrators that offer low administrative costs and do not impose minimum contribution or balance requirements. The site will not be limited to employees who qualify for Savers Match. The initiative, it drew praise from the AARP. Now, that's the advocacy group for older Americans. Americans are 15 times more likely to save for retirement when they have access to a workplace savings plan. But roughly half of all private sector workers currently lack access to one, they said. Now, Trump said he would call on Congress to work on expanding the Trump IRA initiative over time, eventually broadening access to the Savers Match to include employees who do earn more than that $35,500 limit. We think there are a lot of people who make more than that who don't have any assets for retirement, they said. The Trump administration is reportedly considering broadening the program to automatically enroll employees who are not covered by workplace retirement plans. 20 states have already adopted auto IRA programs, according to the AARP, as a safety net for employees who do lack access to retirement savings. The state programs, they offer retirement savings to those workers with automatic enrollment. Workers can choose to opt out. Now, if the federal government adopted an auto IRA program, another 32 million employees would join the retirement savings system, according to the estimates. The initiative, it comes at a significant cost. Funding the Savers Match would diminish federal revenue by $9.3 billion from 2028 to 2032, according to Libertarian Cato Institute, citing data from the Federal Joint Committee on Taxation. Now, automatic enrollment, that could push the cost to over $20 billion. Policymakers are layering new spending commitments with uncertain benefits for lower-income households on top of a system that's already facing a $28 trillion shortfall, says Romina Baccia, who's Director of Budget and Entitlement Policy at Cato. And let me remind you, you're listening to a reading of articles from our USA Today for Tuesday, May the 5th on our Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return to you for more readings just after this short break now. Your readers again today are Jody
and Alan Blackburn.
Welcome summer with your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We're planning a summer bash bigger and better than ever before. It's Friday, June 26th at Creekside Banquet Facility in Grove, located at the corner of Union Road and William Street in Cheektowaga. You're invited to enjoy a buffet chicken and pasta dinner, your first drink on us, a basket raffle, and Buffalo Music Hall of Fame party band The Boys of Summer from 6 to 9 p.m. Tickets are $50 and support the 160 volunteers who read all the programming offered by Radio Reading. That's Friday, June 26th from 6 to 9 p.m. at Creekside Banquet Facility in Grove in Cheektowaga. Get your tickets now by calling 716-821-5555 extension 3 or online at nfradioreading.org. Thank you to New Era Cap Foundation, Tyverin Law, and Perry's Ice Cream for sponsoring this largest event of the year.
We continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of USA Today. Your readers are
Jody.
and Alan Blackburn, and it's on to the sports section. And the Lakers battle as underdog. The shorthanded LA faces champion Thunder. The Los Angeles Lakers have learned to embrace the role of underdog during the NBA postseason. The Lakers advanced to the second round after winning a Western Conference series against the Houston Rockets in 6 games. Los Angeles was not considered a favorite early in the series before rattling off 3 straight wins. The team was then viewed as the favorite for games 4 and 5, games were both won by the Rockets. With Houston tabbed as the favorite for Game 6, LeBron James and Austin Reeves helped put an end to the series. The Lakers are listed as underdogs for Game 1 on today against the defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder. Coach Mark Daigneault and the Thunder have already managed to get the best of the Lakers, sweeping the regular season series 4-0. I feel like it was much the same result pretty much every time we played them, so let's really come down to being able to protect the ball against their physicality, said LA forward Jake LaRavia. Despite past results, members of the Lakers organization believe they have a chance to compete with the champions. You could say nobody thought we were going to get past Houston, but everybody in this building believed, Reeves told reporters on May 3rd, it's the same mindset going into this. The last meeting of the regular season was not only a blowout win for the Thunder, but also the game in which Reeves and Luke Doncic were injured. Reeves made his return to the court from a left oblique muscle strain injury for the last 2 games against the Rockets and is expected to continue playing. Doncic is unlikely to start the series. The guard will likely have to take necessary steps to return, things like to be a full participant in practice and 5-on-5 simulation games where he's ready to play in a postseason environment. Coach J.J. Redick did not have an update on Doncic, but the Lakers are likely to reveal the status of the superstar player when an injury report is released on May 4th. The Lakers will be tasked with trying to hold off the Thunder early in the series and avoid putting themselves in too big a deficit before Doncic can potentially return.
And Auburn football ups the temp in the Red rivalry. Don't go to the loveliest village on the plains for a taste of fruit punch. We don't even have red Gatorade in this building, the Auburn Football Center Cole Best told me in February. That's right. You won't find red sports drink inside the Woltos Football Performance Center at Auburn. Why? Because of the Iron Bowl, of course. Seriously, Alabama's colors being what they are, crimson and white, that makes red sports drink contraband. It's my first time having a real true rivalry like that, says Best, who is a transfer from South Florida. To me, it just builds excitement. It's really, really cool to me, and I can't wait to experience my first Iron Bowl. The red restriction zone, it doesn't stop at the sports drink. Faye Auburn can't shy away from Alabama. Welcome to Auburn football under first-time coach Alex Golsh. Now, this might all sound about gimmicky, right? I mean, will all those months of writing in blue ink and drinking orange Gatorade matter when it comes to stopping Alabama on the 4th and 31? No matter what color Gatorade the Tigers consume, they should be able to get off the field on 4th and 31, right? Well, Hugh Freeze couldn't muster a stop. Maybe that's the point. These last 5 years of Auburn football were so dreadful, let's not mince the words. We shouldn't fault anyone in or around the program for throwing salt over their left shoulder. In the case of Golsh and his staff, ditching the fruit punch and draining the place of red ink, you might think Auburn ought to set its goals smaller than Alabama, like start by ending 2-game losing streak to Vanderbilt, or don't lose to the opponents like New Mexico State or Cal, teams Freeze lost to within the first 2 years of his tenure. But spend any amount of time around Golsh and you'll hear one word more than another: elite. He says it on a loop, and he's trying to make it be Auburn's standard. No fruit punch at Auburn. That's Iron Bowl rivalry at work. The level of import on the Iron Bowl would seem natural if the Tigers had a born and bred Aubie coaching them, but Golsh, he's a native of Russia. He immigrated at age 7 and grew up in Brooklyn in New York City and then later Ohio. Now, he's never coached a game at the Jordan-Hare Stadium, and he admits he's no smooth orator of Auburn history. For history and culture lessons, he can consult wide receivers coach Cody Burns, who played for Auburn, or running backs coach Larry Porter, who is back after a stint as an assistant under Gus Malzahn. Now, Malzahn retired from coaching. He moved back to Lee County. Golsh calls him a huge resource. With a 3-5 record in the Iron Bowl, Malzahn enjoyed more success against Nick Saban's Alabama than most SEC peers. History lessons aside, Golsh's fire and intensity, it lends itself to rivalries. Now, fortunately, Auburn's fruit punch drought need not extend to other flavors. Chief rivals Alabama and Georgia, they both wear a shade of red. It's an undeniably tough draw of rivals. Auburn hasn't beaten either since firing Malzahn. The Tigers have lost 9 straight to Georgia and 6 in a row to Alabama. If you could give Auburn stakeholders truth serum, I wonder how many would quietly admit they'd rather not face that 1-2 punch each season. Publicly, though, that's not the message. I will give it to Georgia and Alabama. They have a very long history of being very successful in football. Auburn Athletic Director John Cohen said, "There's one school in our league that has to play Georgia and Alabama," Cohen said, "and I view that as an opportunity of a lifetime, just so long as you're not craving fruit punch."
Prove it. The WNBA's Chicago Sky don't get the benefit of the doubt after so many past mistakes. Dateline Chicago's is a column by Nancy Armour. It's easy to talk big in the preseason, to style yourself as a team that's going to be competitive and have a championship aspirations. But when you've bumbled around as badly as Chicago Sky have for most of their existence, however, you don't get the benefit of the doubt. You want to prove you're serious about winning and that you're going to do more than the bare minimum. You're going to have to actually do it. We knew that earning the respect of free agents and retaining players that were here was going to take some real sincerity and a genuine plan from our end of who we wanted to be, Sky General Manager Jeff Paglioccia said during the April 30th Media Day. Looking at our roster now, you can see more of an athletic group, shot-creating group, some more size, some more versatility than we've had over the last couple of seasons, he said. We're really going after being a very, very competitive group. Chicago Sky hasn't been the model franchise. The Sky were always going to be under the microscope because of the WNBA's new collective bargaining agreement, which more than quadruples most salaries and raises the minimum standards for all teams. Chicago has long been considered one of the WNBA's worst-run franchises, practicing in a suburban rec center until this season, and running off a who's who of star players and making questionable personnel decisions across multiple front offices. As for the long-awaited practice facility, it still isn't done. Originally expected to open in December 2025, it's been delayed for a second time, with Paglioccia saying now it will be ready in late spring or early summer. Then on April 6th, the Sky confirmed all the worst opinions of the franchise by trading Angel Reese, a fan favorite who was supposed to be a franchise cornerstone for years to come. Reese was the Sky's best player, and she led the WNBA in rebounding in each of her first 2 seasons and averaged a double-double. But she had angered management with the criticisms of the franchise, particularly the wisdom of banking too heavily on Courtney Vandersloot's return this season. Vandersloot, now 37, tore her ACL last June, reshaping the roster. Giving away a superstar like Reese is kind of a move an unserious team makes. But Paglioccia said it was necessary for roster balance. In the days that followed, he traded for Ricky Jackson, J.C. Sheldon, and persuaded Azura Stevens to return. He also won over Skylar Diggins, arguably the Sky's biggest free agent pickup since Candace Parker signed with her hometown team. Just the moves they were making, really putting money where their mouth was, and wanting to make some good change toward getting us back competitive. Getting back in the playoffs, Diggins said of what her sold around the Sky. Jeff really put that vision out there of what him and Coach Tyler Marsh were thinking for this team, and what they wanted for this team. On paper, Chicago's roster looks impressive. It has veteran experience. It has depth. It has defense. It has people who can score. But the game isn't played on paper, and the Sky still have challenges. The Sky will start the season without Vandersloot, Stevens because of a knee, and DeJoyna Carrington because of a foot. And there's no timetable, at least not publicly, for their returns. Of the 16 players currently on Chicago's roster, 11 have been in the league for 2 years or less. We're a growing organization, second-year coach Tyler Marsh says, and we're trying to steer it in a positive direction across the board. The Sky are saying all the right things ahead of the season. What matters is whether they can deliver on them.
And you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on our Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Our time is now 1:10, and we're still in sports. Next up, I have the Avalanche outlast Wild in high-scoring Game 1. Cale Makar scored twice in the third period. Nazem Kadri also had a goal in the third, and the Colorado Avalanche beat the Minnesota Wild 9-6 in Game 1 of their NHL Western Conference semifinal series on May 3rd in Denver. Now, Makar added an assist. Devon Toews had a goal and 3 assists. Nathan McKinnon added a goal and 2 assists. Arturi Lekkonen and Sam Malinsky each contributed a goal and an assist, and Nick Blankenberg and Jack Drury also scored for Colorado. Now, Game 2 of the best-of-7 series is going to be May 5th at 8 p.m. in Denver. Quinn Hughes had a goal and 2 assists. Mats Zuccarello, Marcus Johansson, Vladimir Tarasenko, Ryan Hartman, and Marcus Foligno scored for Minnesota, which rallied from down 3-0 early to take a brief lead late in the second period. Now, the game was tied 5-5 when Makar, who shook off an early injury, got a pass from McKinnon in the right circle and wristed a shot high past Jesper Wallstedt at 3:21. Kadri padded the lead at 5:43 of the third with a breakaway goal. I feel like I was in a pretty good scoring area, Kadri said. Ross Colton made a nice pass to spring me on the half breakaway. Been watching a lot of this goaltender, so I picked my spot, and definitely I picked it properly. Wallstedt turned away 34 of 42 shots in that game. Zuccarello gave the Wild life when the puck went off his leg and in at 16:01, but Makar answered at 17:06. McKinnon added an empty netter to seal it. Score 6 goals, Wallstedt said. We should win a lot of games. There was a rare night when they got 9. Yeah, that happens. Let that go and just move on. Martin Nekis had 3 assists, and Valery Nishukin contributed 2 assists for the Avalanche. Scott Wedgwood had 10 of his 30 saves in the third period to make the lead stand for Colorado. Malinsky, Drury, and Lekkonen scored 2:01 apart midway through the first period to give the Avalanche a 3-0 lead. Johansson and Hartman answered with goals a minute apart to cut it to 3-2. Not playing for a little while was a good way to get things going again, Malinsky said of Colorado's lengthy break since its first-round sweep of the LA Kings. I'm sure my family is really excited. Sam Foligno said, I'm proud of the way we kind of battled back there. I mean, it's 3-0. It's a great barn. They have great fans, and they can get on you. But we battled back. Got some goals and absolute snipes.
And here's another hockey story. The badly outshot Canadiens knock out the Lightning. The Montreal Canadiens showed in Game 7 that it doesn't matter how many shots you get. It's what you do with them. Montreal is heading to a second-round matchup with the Buffalo Sabres, despite being outshot 29-9 and getting no shots in the second period of a 2-1 victory on May 3rd against the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's the fewest shots taken in an NHL playoff win ever. They prevailed on May 3rd because Jacob Dobbs was nearly unbeatable in net, and Nick Suzuki and Alex Newhook had impressive goals. Suzuki beat Andrei Vasilevsky on a deflection that also banked off a Lightning defender. Newhook, meanwhile, batted a rebound out of the air and off Vasilevsky in the third period. Dominic James was the only Lightning player to beat Dobbs, scoring on a deflection in the second period. Dobbs made 28 saves, standing especially tall, while Tampa Bay peppered him with shots in the second period. I feel we are such a good team. No matter what the situation or circumstances, we'll find a way to win, Dobbs said. Now we've got to go to Buffalo, and we cannot get satisfied. We have to keep going. I'm really excited about the second round. The Lightning were knocked out in the first round in the fourth year for the fourth year in a row, and it will be the first time since 2019 that a Florida team hasn't reached the Stanley Cup final. The Canadiens advanced to face Buffalo Sabres starting on Wednesday in Buffalo, and they split their season series. And golf news, Young laps the field for a third tour win. PGA Tour pro Sahith Theegala has played with his share of talented golfers, but he counts Cameron Young as one of the few who has every shot in the bag. He can curve it both ways, he can hit it far, and all of a sudden he's one of the best putters in the game, Theegala tells Golf Week. He practices at Panther National in Palm Gardens Beach, Florida. And when I see him there, sometimes I just stop and watch him hit balls because he's that good. Theegala made those comments shortly before Young won the Players' Championship in March and predicted that when things clicked for Young, he and his fellow pros would be in a world of trouble. And that came to fruition at the Trump Doral National in Miami, where Young closed in 468 on May 3rd to blitz the field by 6 shots at the Cadillac Championship in Doral, a suburb of Miami, and win for the second time on the PGA Tour this season. When the golf course is difficult, when the conditions are difficult, that tends to make it easier for him mentally, Young said. Last season, as Theegala mentioned, Young turned his putting from a weakness into a strength. And this season, the 28-year-old Wake Forest alum improved iron play has keyed his latest leap forward. Young is the only player on the tour to rack outside the top 100 in strokes gained. Approached the green at 129th, greens in regulation at 159th, proximity to the hole tied for 141st in 2025, and inside the top 20 this season in all 3 categories. In 2026, he's approached the green, he's 18th. Greens in regulation, he's tied for 15th. Proximity to the hole, he's 2nd. And at the Wyndham Championship in August, which happened to be the week of his first win, Young switched to a Titleist Pro V1X prototype, a double dot, which gave him better distance control with his irons and wedges. I think it started then probably, he said. That's been a big factor. Young holed nearly 100 feet of putts on April 30th, made 8 birdies, and was perfect in scrambling on his way to a bogey-free 864 to seize the lead. I feel like I made 1 billion feet of putts, which I think works most places, Young said, who noted he also made a couple of long-range putts from the fringe. Every time my ball got near the hole, it seemed like to want to go in today. That continued for most of the tournament, as Young ranked 2nd in strokes gained. Putting for the week. Summing his putting performance, he added, I made all the ones you feel like you're supposed to make, and then I made a few on top of that, from 15 to 30 feet, which is a nice relief when those go in. Young followed with rounds of 67 and 70 to open a 6-stroke lead going into the final round. But he had to play in this final group with Scotty Scheffler. Young was unfazed, not even calling a penalty stroke on himself on the second hole, where he couldn't be sure if he had made his ball move, could sabotage his momentum. It was a breach of Rule 9.4. Player caused their ball at rest to move. But he struck the landing on an 8 iron and rolled in a 14-foot putt for par. Your heart sinks when you see it move, Young said, but it moved. On a day when the morning showers softened the course and led to a final round being played under preferred lies, Young birdied holes number 3, 5, and 8 to stretch his lead to 7. His patience is almost irritatingly good, said CBS Franklin Nobilo. The mental side of the game has been the final agreement in Young's evolution in one of the top players in the game, and on the short list for the highest players in the world. Young projects a stoic demeanor on the outside, but he can run hot on the inside and has developed a habit of being his own worst enemy. When you have someone as talented as Cam, who can hit all the shots with great majesty, the next shot is the next battle, not the last shot, said Young's mental coach, Dr. Brett McCabe. I tell him, don't beat yourself up on what went wrong, why it went wrong. Let's move on. That philosophy has served Young well. On Sunday, with President Trump in attendance at the club that he owns, Young made bogeys at numbers 11 and 13, but bounced back with birdies at 12, 15, and 16, and clipped Scheffler, who shot a 68, and the world number 1 who finished runner-up in his 3rd straight start by a touchdown. It took Young 93 PGA Tour starts before he secured his first victory, number 10 to win, and his second, and then just 3 to grab his 3rd trophy. after taming the famed Blue Monster course, shooting 19 under 269. This was not his A game. That's the scary part, Nubilo said of his 70 on April 30th. His ceiling is extremely high.
The Hard Rock is thumping with the F1 Miami GP and World Cup. They spent well into 7 figures building a boat that will never touch the water and will be torn apart faster than the Titanic. It's that kind of year at the Hard Rock Stadium, a year no one could soon forget. When the checkered flag for the Formula One Miami Grand Prix was waved at the afternoon of May the 3rd for 19-year-old Kimi Antonelli, it was the final act of a project that required 3.5 months of construction. But that checkered flag also served as a green light to tear down hundreds of structures before the next big thing. The next act? Well, merely the largest sporting event in the world, the FIFA Men's World Cup. That's the story for the Hard Rock Stadium of this dizzying year of 2026. Prep for one monster sporting event, invite the crowd, then tear it all down, rinse and repeat. Now, this journey began with Indiana and Miami deciding college football's national championship in a thriller. Then we welcomed the world's best men's and women's tennis players for the Miami Open. Then they just hosted an F1 race that a handful of years ago would have been a pipe dream. Now we can look forward to 7 World Cup matches, including a quarterfinal. That was Joe Roby's dream when he built this place. It's a lineup that can hold its own against any stadium in the country. What? South Florida isn't worthy of Super Bowls anymore? Too bad the NFL doesn't see it that way. Reports surfaced with the Dolphins owner Stephen Ross saying that South Florida, what was once a staple in the Super Bowl rotation, is on the outs because it no longer meets the league's requirements for the event, including insufficient hospitality space. Because the NFL is following Spirit Airlines to the poorhouse, you understand. Talk about putting a damper on the weekend that not even the skies could pull off. Speaking of which, the entire race was virtually totally dry, despite concerns of a deluge that led the organizers to move up the start by 3 hours. But once it was lights out at 1 p.m., drivers put on a dramatic show, and so did their teams with steady and conflicting forecasts. It was going to come down in buckets or not at all. Just take your pick. Antonelli had all the right answers. This is just the beginning, he said during the celebration. The road is long. Nobody has to tell the folks at Hard Rock Stadium. It's one thing to pull off this chameleon act so many times within a period of 148 days. It's another thing to do it the way Ross demands, sparing no expense. Look around the F1 campus. You'll find about 250 structures that you'll never even see at the Dolphins games. Everything, the infrastructure, the power, the plumbing, everything you see is pretty much temporary, says Natalie Clark. So all of it, that takes us 3.5 months to build. It all has to be removed, right? So we're under the gun. Sunday night, the race finishes and we're all excited, and then immediately we start loading out. So we have about 25 days to remove everything off our site that has been built up for the last 3.5 months. Then they can start building the World Cup. This month leading into the F1 weekend, it turned into a sprint for the crew, including those who worked the 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift, refueling the machinery, chlorinating the pools, anything that could be done without keeping the neighbors awake. That's the other element to these transformations that is easy to overlook. When the tennis tournaments take place in the last 2 weeks of March, we're focusing our attention further away from the stadium because obviously we're sensitive to noise, that the tennis players don't experience noise in the background. All this work, and then they dismantle it. Nowak was the one married to the idea of building the MSC replica yacht that towered over all but the stadium itself. When she first commissioned an architect to produce a drawing, she turned up her nose. She didn't want a tugboat, she wanted luxury, and then she got it. 5 levels, including a captain's deck on a yacht 264 feet long, 96 feet wide, 5 stories high, with a 360-degree view of the track and campus. Buried below the ship is the underworld, the kitchen. Sea bass has to be cooked somewhere. You've done all this work to make this incredible experience, and then within minutes, we dismantle it, Clark said. That's the price of refusing to let a good idea go to waste. Anything's possible with the right support, Clark has said. Now, once race is over, now race begins to prep for the World Cup. With the F1 now leaving town, FIFA soon will arrive. Every minute counts here, Clark said, explaining that the FIFA expects a clean and clear site for World Cup preparations for the first match here that will be June 15th. Outside of the stadium and the garage, everything, including the yacht, will head into storage for next year. Soon after the paddock inside the stadium is removed, a new batch of grass will be trucked down from Palm Beach County and stitched together by FIFA to form the World Cup playing surface. Now, the one fortunate break is that when Robbie built the stadium, he did so with a field meeting FIFA specifications. While many stadiums are ripping out lower-level seats, Hard Rock is able to add 9 rows, but one wrinkle. The name Hard Rock Stadium will be concealed during the tournament. It'll simply be called Miami Stadium to meet FIFA's restrictions about sponsorship. Now, the consolation match, which will be on July the 18th, will wrap up this 6.5-month sports buffet. Hard Rock Stadium, the largest Airbnb in South Florida, will be occupied by its regular tenants, which is the Dolphins and the Hurricanes, for most of the fall anyway. Bruno Mars and Ushers, they have concerts scheduled for that stadium. That never rests.
Nelly Korda wins by 4 for her 18th LPGA title. Nelly Korda became the youngest American player since Nancy Lopez in 1980 to reach 18 career victories on the LPGA. The 27-year-old backed up a dominant win at the season's first major with a 4-shot victory at the Riviera Maya Open at Mayakoba. Korda hasn't finished outside the top 2 in 6 starts this season. With 3 victories, she has lost to only 2 players all year, Yoo Joo Kim twice and Lauren Coughlin. I just enjoy myself and I love the competition, said Korda when asked after the round May 3rd if she's playing the best golf of her career. In 2024, Korda won 6 of her first 8 starts of the season. The newly minted world number 1, Korda flew straight from the Chevron Championship in Houston down to Mexico and took a Monday off, enjoying tacos and guacamole on the beach. By Tuesday, she was back to work, managing her energy levels throughout the week to perfection. When you play so many weeks in a row, the weeks go by so fast. The most important thing is obviously conserving your energy, but then also making sure that you're hitting the gym, because if you're not, then you're not activating the right muscles and you're more prone to injuries, said Korda, who played 9 holes both Tuesday and Wednesday in Mexico, hitting the gym both days. Everyone has a different recipe. I've just noticed you can't run away from being tired. You kind of just have to roll with it and know that your energy levels are not going to be 100%. How rare is a big win after a major win? Only 3 times in LPGA history has a player won by 5 or more shots after winning a major. That was Lorena Ochoa in 2008, when she won the Corona Championship by 11 shots. Louise Suggs in 1952 All-American Women's Open by 9 shots. In Seabreak Pack in 1988, she won the Jamie Farr Kroger by 9 shots. Korda closed with a 69 on May 3rd, to finish at 17 under for the tournament. She led by as many as 7 in the final round. Thailand's Arpichaya Yubol, ranked 187th in the world, finished a career best solo second on her 24th birthday with her dad on the bag. Yubol called it a dream come true to be paired with Korda in the final round. One of only 3 top 20 players in Mayakoba and the only one in the top 10, Korda was also the only winner of the season in a field of 125. With so many top players taking the week off, it was a significant opportunity for those needing a big push. Not long after the 36-year-old Brianna Do qualified for her first U.S. Women Open in years, the journeywoman who ranks 345th in the world took solo 4th after closing 71. Both Do and third-place finisher Yu Liu earned spots in this week's field of the Mizuho America's Open due to their strong play. Do's first career top 10 came last year in Mayakoba. After last year, going into it, I believe my best golf was still ahead of me, even though I'm one of the older players out there, and I still believe that. It just showed this week, said Do. It's hard not to get emotional, but I'm really proud of myself and how I played. Rookie Melanie Green started the weekend with an ace she never saw and ended it with a share of 9th in her second top 10 of the season. Recent Augusta National Women's Amateur Champion Maria Jose Marin put together a stellar performance. finishing solo fifth to earn 2 leap points toward her LPGA card. Marin, who was born in Mexico, turned down an invitation to play in last week's Shepherd Championship, as it overlapped with SEC's. Ever since Augusta, my life has changed and changed for good, said Marin. I'm getting a lot of invitations to tournaments and getting recognized in more than I have ever been. Korda, who held a 6-shot lead going into the last hole before a rare miss off the tee, resulting in her hitting a provisional. After some time in the sand, she rolled in a bogey putt from off the green and threw her hands in the air to celebrate. It was only the second bogey of the week. Korda won a paycheck of $375,000 for her efforts, bringing her just shy of $19 million in career earnings. She now has 23 of the 27 points needed to qualify for the LPGA Hall of Fame. The food is unbelievable, she said. I must say I'm tacoed out. I'm not going to touch a taco for at least 2 weeks now. I've had too many.
And you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on our Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. It is now 1:30, and it's time to move to our lifestyle section. First up, we're going to talk music. Remember Prince's first and last concerts. Joe Bream remembers it was below zero, which is not unusual for Minneapolis in January. About 300 people turned up to the Capri Theater in 1979 to see an upstart musician who was being hyped as the next Stevie Wonder. Bream, who was a staff writer at the Minneapolis Star, he knew of this talented kid since '76 when a local concert promoter tutored this recent high school graduate who played numerous instruments. Then by '78, Prince had signed his first contract with Warner Brother Records. After spending triple his budget on his debut album called For You, the label suits wanted some indication of his ability to perform live. So he assembled a band, he rehearsed, and then on that freezing night at his hometown, he performed what Bream wrote was an encouraging debut performance. That was the first professional review written about Prince, which also complimented the budding superstar for his Mick Jagger-like strutting and deduced he was cool and cocky and sexy. Tickets, they were $4 in advance, $4.75 at the door. Now fast forward almost 40 years to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, where I worked for a decade as the newspaper's pop music critic. Prince was playing a pair of hastily announced concerts on his piano and a microphone tour at the Fox Theater on April the 7th of 2016. Until then, he wasn't. Hours before showtime, the concerts were canceled because we were told he had a cold. The shows were just as hastily rescheduled for the following week, the 14th. Tickets were limited to 2 per person and could be picked up at the box office. I attended the first of the 2 concerts to turn a quick review. Prince's voice, I noted, it sounded nasal when he spoke, but the only other assessment was pure praise, calling the scaled-down concert a rare opportunity to witness the raw musicality that pulses through his veins. I also wrote his ingeniousness was evident from the stripped-down version of the opening called Little Red Corvette, which dovetailed into Vince Guaraldi's Linus and Lucy, an interesting cross-pollination until you realize the similar melodic patterns of the songs. Now, some of the best seats sold for more than $1,000. That night, as Prince flew home to his Minneapolis home, after his 10 p.m. Atlanta show, his private plane detoured to Illinois because he had fallen unconscious. Now, the reason we were told was severe flu and dehydration, but really it was an overdose that required Narcan. Exactly a week later, Prince was dead from an opioid overdose at his Paisley Park compound. My story was the last review of a Prince show in a major publication. That Bream and I bookended Prince's lifetime as a live performer is weird, and a universe works in mysterious ways. We've been peers and pals for more than 25 years when he kindly shepherded an anxious cub reporter through the first Grammy Awards coverage. The odds of us being newspaper music reporters whose words marked the start and the finale of Prince's extraordinary career are the kind even I would laugh at in Las Vegas. Now, Bream is still at the now Minnesota Star Tribune and is the longest tenured pop music critic at a U.S. daily newspaper. He is a de facto Prince expert. His knowledge, collected from decades of coverage and dozens of conversations with the mysterious musical genius and off-the-record sources he dubbed the Deep Purple. He still remembers Prince's already idiosyncratic style, that his first show, blue jeans, an unbuttoned blouse, and a vest, said, "To give my Prince princely touch, leg warmers over his jeans. Now, in memory of Prince's last performance is hazy, other than he was shrouded in purple lighting and wielded a cane. A strictly enforced no phones policy meant no cruddy cell phone snaps existed to jar my recollections. But Bream, as he should, he owns the definitive Prince remembrance. 2 nights before he died, Prince attended a Liz Wright concert at one of his regular Minneapolis haunts called the Dakota. Bream was there too, and he noticed that Prince remained for the show's encore, which was unusual then. And then I saw him walk through the kitchen, which is not open to the public, with members of his entourage all in single file. He was walking with his cane. It was a fancy bejeweled cane over his shoulder, Bream said, and that was the last I ever saw him.
Meryl Streep as a mom says, I did want to have both. You can thank Meryl Streep for the most emotional moment of The Devil Wears Prada, too. In the long-awaited sequel, fashion's high priestess Miranda Priestley, played by Streep, saves Runaway magazine. She finds an affluent new buyer, Sasha Barnes, played by Lucy Liu, for the failing publication after an attempted coup by her former assistant, Emily Charlton, played by Emily Blunt. The film ends with Miranda and features editor Andy Sachs, played by Anne Hathaway, in the back of a car mulling over the uncertain future of journalism at large. Mid-conversation, Miranda reveals that she knows Andy has been writing a tell-all book about her at the time at Runway. Andy declares she no longer wants to, but Miranda insists she move forward with her expose, ruefully lamenting the moments she missed of her twin daughters growing up. You should write it and you should keep all the juicy bits in, Miranda tells Andy. How impatient I am, how demanding and imperious, how much of my children's lives I've missed. Just put it all in there because people should know there's a cost. But boy, I love working, I really do. Don't you do it? Don't you? I just love it. It's a scene that carried weight for Streep, who's 76 years old, and a 3-time Oscar winner, who shares 3 daughters and a son. In fact, the Hollywood icon ad-libbed for the I love working bit herself. The line wasn't in there, Streep told USA Today, seated with Hathaway on a recent afternoon. That was something I threw in because I just do love working. I do love working as an actor. And I thought, for women, it's the way that Miranda shares her insight. It's a little sneaky, like, don't you sneak a cigarette every once in a while? Because it's still frowned upon that you're going to try to do the selfish thing, that is rewarding yourself, and also want to have a family. I mean, people do. I did want to have both. We're human beings. We should be able to do that and model for our children, our boys and girls. And that it's great to be creative, to be out in the world and doing our very level best, you know. Hathaway, who's 43 years old, has 2 young sons, and the Oscar-winning actress has been working steadily for more than 25 years, with breakthrough roles in The Princess Diaries and the original Devil Wears Prada. It was really amazing being able to care for yourself economically, Hathaway says. I've been working since I was a teenager, and I've been in charge of my own finances for that same amount of time, which means I signed every single check in my life as an adult. I've paid my rent, I put myself through college, and all those things I took on that financial responsibility. As a result, my life feels very much like my own, Hathaway says. I don't have to ask anyone for things. I have no problems working to earn the freedom, and I like it. For many women, that option has only been available for a few decades, which is crazy. So I don't really want to waste this opportunity. The month-long Devil Wears Prada 2 promotional tour took them across the globe, with stops in Mexico City, Seoul, Shanghai, and Tokyo. In each city, girls would come up to them and say, this meant so much to me, Streep says. I thought of it as sort of a frothy, fun movie, but it had some other kind of pull for young people, and that's very heartening. This means that it's resonated in a lot of different cultures, and in different places, in regard to how they feel about women working. Andy Miranda's poignant exchange is a direct mirror to the end of the first Devil Wears Prada, which similarly ends with 2 characters talking in the back of a car in Paris. Only in that movie, Andy decided she didn't want to wind up like Miranda, so she quit her job as an assistant.
And now we're talking theater. Adrian Brody tells the man's story of his 22 years on death row. For Adrian Brody, the fear of 13 has been impossible to shake. In 2024, this Queens native starred in the London production of Lindsay Ferrantino's eye-opening play. Now, it tells the shattering true story of Nick Yaris, who was wrongfully convicted of rape and murder and then spent 22 years on Pennsylvania's death row. Now, just 3 months after the UK run concluded, Brody clinched his second Best Actor Oscar for his tour de force in The Brutalist, sparking rampant speculation about what could be his major Hollywood follow-up. But he wasn't quite finished with this chapter yet. The challenge of doing theater has always been both daunting and alluring, Brody, who's 53, says after an evening performance of The Fear of 13, which is now playing on Broadway. The joy of being an actor is to try things that offer new ways of exploring a character, which only gets better with age, he says. You've lived more, you've inevitably suffered more, and you understand others' suffering. It's such a joy to be at this place in my life where I both feel brave enough and have the ability to carry a work of this magnitude on the stage in my hometown, where I started humbly 40 years ago off-Broadway. Of course, I look for film work consistently, but I felt like taking the time to do this. Now, spanning more than 3 decades, The Fear of 13 traces Yaris's traumatic upbringing. He was severely beaten and sexually assaulted by a teenage boy at age of 7, and then he resorted to drugs and petty crime to cope. Then at age 20, he was arrested after a routine traffic stop turned into a violent altercation with police. Hoping to gain his freedom, he accused an acquaintance of the rape and murder of Linda Mae Craig, only to become the prime suspect himself. Years of DNA testing of evidence came back inconclusive, but one final round eventually cleared Yaris back in 2003. The play charts his despair and his hope, as well as his unlikely romance with a prison volunteer. Brody grew up in a working-class neighborhood, the son of a history teacher, Elliot Brody, and photographer Sylvia Placci. As a kid, he remembers there was a lot of proximity to wild young guys, similar to Yaris, who sought illicit means to get ahead. Nick's story, it resonated partially because I've seen how easily people have been victimized by a foolish mistake very early in life, Brody says. Now, performing 8 shows a week has put Brody through a physical and emotional ringer. He rarely leaves the stage for the entirety of the play's nearly 2-hour intermissionless runtime. Through lengthy monologues, intense fight sequences, and the relentless malleability of both his body and his voice, Brody vividly portrays Yaris from a small child to a middle-aged man. As a visual artist, Brody says he has created many pieces that reference imprisonment and those who have been historically overlooked in his society. Although he has no time to paint backstage, I have lined my dressing room with my own paintings that are relevant to this, the actor says. He has tried a million different herbal remedies and tea to try to combat insomnia, he also says, but he also enjoys writing music in the wee hours when he can't sleep. I've been composing and making hip-hop beats since I was a teenager, Brody says. Now, the first time Brody read through The Fear of 13, he recalls being so moved to tears that I could hardly utter the words aloud for weeks. He hopes that the play will help audiences re-examine their own apathy. People are often forgotten once they're out of the headlines and it's not personal for you anymore. But we must consider being more present for others and finding ways of rehabilitation that are not debilitating. Now, naturally, Brody feels a great responsibility and weight in portraying Yaris, who is 64 now, who has come to see the show multiple times. When that person weeps openly and shares that it has provided a tremendous amount of healing for him to have his story shared with the world, well, it's very meaningful and rewarding to me, Brody says. He's a wonderful human being and has gained a perspective many of us don't have, the preciousness of time and loss of that. As for how he plans to spend his own time once this Broadway run is finished, he lets out a big laugh. Part of me never wants to work again because I'm so exhausted, he says, but I know myself and I'm so grateful to still love my work. So I'll just need a break and then I'll come back stronger than ever, hopefully. I'm trying to find something really special in the film space and we'll see. A lot of that's out of my hands. I just have to be available for it whenever it comes.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 1:43. Here's a story about streaming, previewing Lord of the Flies on Netflix. This isn't a test, but it was helpful if you remember a few things you learned in high school. Netflix and the BBC have brought the literary and English classic Lord of the Flies to our television screens. a deeply relevant story for the complicated and brutal world of 2026. It's a gripping and superb adaptation that just might make it to the best show of the year. While it's a book most of us probably have read, and it's endlessly referenced in other popular culture, you may not remember the salient details of the story. But don't worry, from Piggy to a pig's head on a stick, we break down everything you need to remember about flies before you watch the series. And you really should watch the series. What to know about the book Lord of the Flies. Written by English author William Golding and first published in 1954, the novel follows a group of English schoolboys whose plane has crashed on a deserted island amidst a wartime evacuation. Along with any adults, the boys try to organize themselves to get food, water, shelter, and fun. They elect a chief, Ralph, played by Winston Sawyers in the new series, and hold meetings in which the only boy holding a large conch shell is allowed to talk. And here's a picture of these boys, and they're a diverse group in this 2026 series, people of various ethnic backgrounds, not just all white English boys. But while they try hard, their camp, democracy, and organization quickly fall apart. Tensions emerge between Ralph and Jack, played by Lox Pratt in this series, a bully obsessed with the power over others. They're haunted by what they believe to be a mysterious beast lurking in the jungle. Eventually, the boys split into two camps. Paranoia runs rampant, and deadly violence ensues. Oh, and at one point, yes, there's a pig's head on a stick. Golding wrote the book in the aftermath of the destruction and evil of World War II, and in direct response to the Scottish authors R.M. Ballantyne's The Coral Island, A Tale of the Pacific Ocean, an 1858 novel in which the stranded boys are good, civilized, and behaved. What to know about the TV show, The Lord of the Flies? Flies premiered on the BBC in the United Kingdom earlier this year to strong critical reviews, and is streaming now on Netflix with four episodes. The story is adapted by Jack Thorne, the British writer who tackles similar topics in 2025's Adolescence, which garnered him acclaim and quite a few awards. The young stars include Sawyers and Pratt as Ralph and Jack, as well as David McKenna as Piggy, Ike Talbot as Simon, Thomas Connor as Roger, Cornelius Brandreth as Maurice, Noah Fleming as Sam, and Cassius Fleming as Eric. There is also a trove of tiny actors playing boys as young as 4 or 5. A few adult characters appear in flashbacks portrayed by Ralph Kinnear and Daniel Mays. And why is The Lord of Flies famous? An instant classic upon its publication, Flies is chock full of imagery, metaphor, allegory, symbolism, and all those literary devices your high school English teacher wanted you to learn. If you watch the show and think, hey, this is a lot like Yellow Jackets or The Hunger Games, you'd be right. Flies is a foundational work that similar stories are referencing. Showtime's Yellow Jackets specifically takes the format and swaps the gender. What would happen if a group of young girls were stranded and left to fend for themselves? The book also has adapted into feature films multiple times, including a famous 1963 movie directed by Peter Brook and a 1990 film directed by Harry Hook. The Netflix/BBC show is the first television adaptation. The influence of the novel goes beyond direct homages. Stephen King has spoken about how the novel influenced his own work, like the horror novel It's the Fictional Maine Town of Castle Rock, that featured in some of his other novels, is taken from the name of Jack's Fort in The Lord of the Flies. The reality TV show The Survivor is also indirectly inspired by Golding's world, particularly in its earliest seasons when it was built as a social experiment and its cast members were tasked with building a new society. ABC's supernatural stranded on a desert island drama, Lost, from 2004 to 2010, has direct references to the novel. In spite of its place on lists of greatest novels of all time, Lord of the Flies also frequently appears on challenged and banned book lists, probably because of his violence and dark themes.
And now we're going to talk movies. Is Animal Farm okay for little kids? Here's a parent's guide. Animated movies with talking animals are a staple of every little movie lover's entertainment diet. Political satires about revolution and inequality? Well, not so much. One of author George Orwell's most trenchant works, this is the 1945 allegorical novella called Animal Farm. Well, it gets a new animated film adaptation, and it's in the theaters right now. This new farm, it carries over some of the original heady themes, but it's much more than animals driving Lamborghinis and pigs throwing booze-fueled ragers. But even with all these chatty critters, is this okay for children to watch given the subject matter? Here's what moms and dads need to know about Animal Farm. First, what is Animal Farm about? The movie centers on a young pig on Manor Farm named Lucky, who can read and write. When a slaughterhouse van shows up to take Lucky and the other animals away, their leader, who's the smart sow called Snowball, leads a revolt that drives out everyone but the animals. Snowball drafts rules to live by, but her rival, the lazy but charismatic Boer called Napoleon, leads his own revolution, taking Lucky under his wings. After driving Snowball out, Napoleon takes over and creates a power structure where the pigs rule. The motto is, all animals are equal, but some are more equal. Napoleon and the other pigs begin to act like humans. They strike up a deal with a wealthy CEO to help each other out. Lucky sees bad things happening to his former non-pig friends, like a good-hearted workhorse boxer, and then he leads his own revolt against Napoleon. So, what is Animal Farm an allegory for? Orwell's original Animal Farm was a political satire that explored authority, power, and corruption through animals that overthrow their human running the farms. But what starts as a utopia where animals can live free and treat one another as equals, that soon turns sideways, instead becoming a dystopian state where pigs become akin to mankind and things aren't any better than they were at the start of the story. So, what is the age rating for this movie? The film is rated PG by the Motion Picture Association for thematic elements, some action/violence, rude humor, and language. The movie embraces being a talking animals movie that leans towards kids, especially the antics of Napoleon. This is the sound of freedom, he says after a loud fart. And then at the same time, it struggles to also be something more heady, giving the themes of totalitarianism. Plus, there are quite a few scenes that put the characters in peril. Some even strongly imply their death. So, is the movie the same as the book? The script by Nicholas Stroller keeps some of the bigger plot points of the book, but it veers in many other ways. Like Lucky, for one, is a completely new character who acts as the audience point of view way into the story. There are a number of modern touches, like the pigs go to the mall and buy sports cars and other human goods, and the ending is completely different. Is it appropriate for little children? Animal Farm has all the trappings of a kid's movie, with expressive cartoon animals and peppy songs, yet it's also extremely dark at times. One scene involving Boxer, it's hard to watch, even for adults. There's also an eerie moment when Lucky sees, in horrific fashion, how there's no real difference between the ruling pigs and the cruel humans. So it's clear someone at least read Orwell's book. Now, the movie's probably best for 10 years and older. Younger kids might not understand the headier themes at play and probably will be bothered by the cruel way Napoleon and the other pigs treat their fellow four-legged creatures. Is the movie any good? A few parents might remember seeing the 1954 animated movie called Animal Farm that didn't water down the meatier aspects of Orwell's story, maybe even in school. But this is not that film. Serkis, he weaves in a deeper narrative, and he almost seems to accidentally say something insightful about the authoritarianism, and it's trying way too hard to also be a cute kids movie. You can just imagine Orwell rolling over in his grave when a pop rap tune plays while Napoleon leads the animals to excitedly eat their winter reserves of food and grain. In these divisive times, a watered-down version of something so salient as Animal Farm, even a coming-of-age tale for children that leans into the importance of working together, it just feels trite and unnecessary. That it comes from a talented storyteller like Serkis, that's kind of head-scratching. One can only hope that it inspires parents to lead their kids toward the OG book when they're old enough to understand its real message. So, finally, where can you see it? Animal Farm is in theaters nationwide right now. For those who want to watch it at home, if it follows a similar pattern as other Angel Studios releases, well, it will probably be available on digital platforms and streaming service Angel Guild sometime in June.
Here's the Lifeline column. Making waves, Blunt and Tucci are related. Yes, Emily Blunt and Stanley Tucci really are related. The Devil Wears Prada 2 stars poked fun at their family connection during an appearance on the Today Show. Tucci, who's 65, has been married to Blunt's sister, literary agent Felicity Blunt, since 2012. We are so related, Blunt, who's 43 years old, jokingly told Today host Jenna Bush Hager, to which Tucci replied, "We're over-related." It's your birthday. Who's celebrating today? Actor Lance Henriksen turns 86. Actor-comedian Michael Palin is 83. Actor John Rhys Davies is 82. Journalist TV personality Kurt Loder is 81. Drummer Bill Ward of the Black Sabbath is 78. Journalist Brian Williams is 67. Singer James Labrie of Dream Theater is 63. Drummer Sean Drover of Megadeth is 60. Actor Vincent Kartheiser is 47. Actor Henry Cavill is 43. Singer Adele is 38. And singer-actor Chris Brown is 37. And here are the horoscopes. Aries. A difference of opinion leaves you questioning an alliance as Mercury clashes with Pluto today. Taurus. Saying it with your chest? Start a conversation, not a fight, as Mercury clashes with Pluto. Gemini. Running over the problem in your mind? Reflect, don't ruminate, as Mercury and Pluto square off. Cancer, are you being honest with them? A white lie is still a lie, as Mercury and Pluto square off. Leo, unwilling to hear their side? You make life harder on yourself if you ignore a partner's point of view today. Virgo, whose way is the right, as Mercury and Pluto square off? Remember, the two things can be true at once. Libra, are you thinking clearly? Passions turn into obsessions as Mercury and Pluto square off. Be mindful of tunnel vision. Pushing your point as Mercury clashes with Pluto. You have a knack for getting others to agree to a compromise. Sagittarius, getting into it with a coworker. An intense exchange that serves peace on the job as Mercury and Pluto clash. Capricorn, defending your decisions, you have to understand by a splurge or gamble as Mercury and Pluto square off. Aquarius, intense interactions, someone tries to pick a fight with you as Mercury clashes with Pluto. Avoid going into crisis mode. Pisces, what are you sharing versus what are you keeping? How you communicate intel matters today. Why, Mercury and Pluto going at it today? Well, you've been listening to a reading of USA Today for Tuesday, May 5th of 2026. Reread USA Today weekday at noon. For more information, call 821-5555. Your readers today have been
Jody
and Alan Blackburn.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability